Добрый день.
Good afternoon, dear participants of our discussion. Our topic today, we will begin because almost all the speakers are here. The topic of our discussion is the comfortable urban area, the energy-efficient technologies, projects, and idea. We will talk about smart homes, smart housing services, and so on. For starters, I will present the participants of our discussion. Alexander Svenin, First Deputy Chairman of the Government of the Udmurt Republic. Alexei Makrushin, General Director of the Association Housing and Communal Services and Urban Environment. We lack one speaker, it seems, here. Sorry. Yeah, we lack two speakers, actually, but we will continue nevertheless. Anna Shabarova, Vice President for Personal Policy and Social Responsibility of the Russian corporate company RMK, and Maxim Nevesenko, Deputy Director of the Department for Incentive Demands of the Foundation for Infrastructure and Educational Programs, the Rosnano Group. And I, your moderator, Vladimir Sidorovich, Director of the Institute of Energy Efficient Technologies in Construction. And also the topic is very wide today, and on the first place here are the energy efficient technologies, and the implementation of these technologies is what differentiates the smart housing services from other. And the new technologies and new products and energy efficiency not only allows to preserve resources, but is also a very important factor for economic growth. We have another task in our country to increase the economy and to be on the fifth place by GDP. How can we fulfill this task? Of course, we have to increase the demand, and in the housing and public utilities, we have a very big potential of the increase of the demand. For example, in the terms of the heat insulating material, the windows construction, and so on, the housing services and utilities can be a tool for the economic growth. And very seldom this industry is considered as a cost. This is as expenses. But of course, here we lack the long-term investment. But nevertheless, in these conditions, we can employ the tools of energy services. And these measures of energy efficiency are rather effective. And I would like to ask Alexander, the First Deputy Chairman of the Government of the Udmurt Republic, to share his experience with us and tell us about the problems and the achievements of the region of Udmurtia. Well, especially about the problems. Thank you very much. It's my second session on this event, and I thank the organizers to the invitation and to their attention to the experience of our republic, because we are very eager to talk about the project that we have implemented, and also we would like to hear from the colleagues and to share their experience of the implementation of the projects. I don't know really how to manage this switch, so please switch to the next slide. Firstly, I will tell about how the Republic of Udmurtia is feeling today in terms of the energy efficiency technologies. It's about 42 billion rubles per year that the Republic spends for the payment of the housing services, but even if we economize just 10% of that, we economize the whole 4.2 billion rubles per year. So everybody thinks that these services are just expenses, but we think in our government that all these events and all these measures connected to the energy efficiency should be thought about as long-term projects. And of course, it should be implemented in the frames of 3-5 years, but we don't think that we will exist only for 3-5 years. We will make our forecast for more durable delays. And from 2014 to 2016, you see we was on the ninth place, and now we are on the third place in terms of the fundamental efficiency of the business. But the agency Interfax ERA has monitored these components of this rating, and we was on the first place here from the point of view of the energy efficiency for 1 unit of the production. So the energy density is very efficient in our republic. So our region is an industrial one, and we are about 150 million rubles every year of our industry. And so energy efficiency is a very complex issue. It's not only the housing services, it's also the city infrastructure. It's not only kindergartens and school and hospitals and so on, but it's also the energy efficiency of the industry enterprises, because it influences our GDP and our budget. So here we are trying to look at it as a complex. So if you talk about the comfortable city area and comfortable urban area, the first mechanism here is an energy service contracts. Here you have some statistics on the slides. From the 2011, we have some contracts in this field for the sum of more than 1 billion rubles. And so these 165 contracts, the most part of them, of course, is the budget sphere, but our industrial enterprises have also concluded this contract. For example, the plant Kupol, the radio plant of Izhevsk, and the concern Kalashnikov. We are the government here, and we are really the driver for our industrial enterprises, for them to implement these technologies. And we are implementing different technologies, and we try to get our enterprises to implement these technologies. We have 25 regions in our republic, and in every city we have realized the energy efficiency contracts, and we have the system of the street lighting, for example. It's about 300 million rubles. Also, I would like to emphasize some problems. There are several problems here. Of course, is the financement, firstly. Unfortunately, today the banks are not very active about giving loans to the energy services and energy services companies. The companies just don't have enough capital to invest in these projects, and so we as a government, we are ready to initiate complex projects in the field of energy services, in the housing and public utilities, and as well as in the budget sphere. But unfortunately, it's very difficult to find a partner who could implement all these projects. And the second problem here is, as I said, we have 25 regions in our republic, and the energy services don't allow us to unify different municipal areas. So if we just find a resolution for this problem, we can increase our development, especially in the remote regions and economize there. And the third problem is the complex approach, because it's very easy just to replace the lamps of the street lighting, and it's not the greatest step in energy efficiency. And if you look at a territory of complex integrators, so we have to, it's very difficult to find them in our region. And I hope that today, during our communication, we will be able to find such a company and to communicate with them later. So we have to implement complex projects, but the only way that we see today is to move away from the energy service and to find some concessions here. Here you see a project of the lighting of the Izhevsk city. And the math were as follows. We have the lamps and we have the economy. We have to economize on the services. And this economy just wasn't able to hold any investment plans. So our first desire was just to change the lamps in the city and to drop all other problems, as well as the project The Clean Sky, for example, when we get the wire into the ground, or, for example, to change the support of the lamps. But we wanted to make this project a complex one, and we thought that the only possibility is to prolong the delay from 5 years to 15, for example, and to make a concession agreement here, and not to replace just 3,000 lamps, but also to replace 3,000 supports and to replace the wire or two more modern ones. And so we, I think, will realize this problem, the clean sky, and we are very close to publish the competition of this concession, because now it's only a project and we are deciding what financial model we will implement here, and we finish with the regulations and so on. So for now and for us, the concession is the only good variant in the area of energy efficiency. And the next, our complex project, which was presented to the head of our republic, it will be the complex project of the modernization of the objects of the budget sphere. We will not change windows, for example, in just one school or in just one object, one sport object. We will create pools of objects, 100 or 50 objects, where these projects of the complex changes should be approached by the supplier as a system. And we as a republic will get an increase in quality of the infrastructure objects, and our concessionaire will get clear ROI. And it's not about the energy services, it's about bank also, and they will understand from where they will get back their money. So, and I hope that on the next Innoprom we will be able to show such a complex project with the figures already. So thank you very much, and I am ready to answer questions if you have any.
Thank you very much. All the questions will be at the end of the session. Since we are the main participants of this event, of course, we can discuss and talk to each other during this plenary session. Thank you very much for the presentation from the point of view of the content and from the point of view of the design. Okay, please order this kind of design. We have it in Izhevsk, and we are always happy to meet new clients. Thank you very much. I will notice. I will make a note on that. And when you opened the presentation, I was stunned because it's a high-level, high-tech design. Of course, lightning is a classics of energy, and that's primary technology. The partner of our track is the infrastructural track, Rosnano. Do you cooperate with state corporations? Because I know they've got a huge catalog of different solutions, energy-saving solutions, not only lamps, but also the technologies that help to reduce energy consumption. Different front lines, thermal insulation that helps to sanate the building in any kind of weather. Well, look, of course we cooperate with state corporation. We are in the constant dialogue because the corporation has a large list of questions that they help us to solve. But the government of the Udmurt Republic has its own list and that we face. And during the previous session, I already talked about our basic principle is that to renovate the infrastructure of the Republic in a qualitative manner, and it should improve the quality of life of our citizens. And many regions are in the same position because the workload is very huge. How can we cope with that? We can do that through involvement of private capitals that we understand that and we can cooperate with them. But we are also interested in companies, integrators that would collect all the best practices from the market. And if it is us as a republic, that, for example, we create a company with state funding and then collect different best practices. But we don't. We think that it's the task of the business, and we talk to any company that would demonstrate us any different technologies. For example, Rosnano has this technology, another company has different technologies, and so we implement these technologies and solve your problem on energy saving. We are ready for that, but it would be wrong to. For us to select the best technical decisions. We are waiting for a proactive position of business, and of course, unfortunately, you were right that everybody likes lamps and bulbs, and everybody likes changing bulbs. It's easy, and the economy is this. And of course, the market has money for that. And Rostelecom announced about the creation of the subsidiary company for service contract in energy saving field. But changing lamps, changing bulbs is the way that many regions have passed already, because it's not the way out, because the market maybe is ready for accepting an integrator, some kind of, let it be Rosnano or Rostec or Dom.ru or anybody. We are ready for the dialogue, for the talk, and we would like to see a complex unified integrator. Thank you very much. Now I would like to give the floor to Makrushin Alexey Vячеславovich. What is smart housing? We use this smart, clever term, smart city. It sounds better than the stupid city, but in the term itself, there is a lot from marketing, because smart cities are not standardized. There is no fixed standard that would describe the features of a smart city, and there is no commonly accepted indicators in the world or in our city that would describe fully this kind of smart city. Okay, tell us about the smart city management. Would tell us about that, whether it would become a bad habit. Okay, it's a good question, but I should note that looking at the Innoprom program, I realized that the topic of smart city is gaining popularity, and I would like to say that few topics raise an interest in a great number of participants and the community. I think it means that we are a bit tired of repairing pipes, but we would like to make something great and huge. And this trend is this is a new trend, and that would lead to definite solutions and definite trends that would make our lives better. I will tell you about what we do in our narrow sphere in housing environment. And we are a group that is next to the built in the Ministry of Construction, but we are focused on the discussion of housing industry. There are several bullet points. On the slide you can see different trends that we should do on the federal level within our framework, the framework of our project. First, we have to start with digitalization, because we have data in analogous form, and we cannot implement new technologies without that. And facing regularly the tariffs regulation and investment planning, when everything is on paper in Excel format, and it is not possible to unite all these data, it's also senseless. And we are, as regulators, we are walking in the darkness and without seeing the actual picture. And the basis is the putting everything into digits. And we have this housing, which is much better in different spheres. And the data that are collected, it should not be just a huge hype of information that nobody can deal with. And every figure should mean something. And somebody should support this information. The second question is that we have to pay attention to is what is a smart city, what is a smart solution, and what is not smart solution. And we have to implement some system of standards and technologies. Of course, we cannot describe all these technologies, and we have a special reference list of efficient technologies. But the main idea is not to say this technology is good and this is bad, but in every case has its own peculiarities, and some technologies work better. But the idea is to substitute old technologies with new technologies and help the consumers choose the technology and help them to make a decision. The system of standards that is within the international standards that we need to systematize our knowledge and help government bodies which direction we have to go to. Pilot projects, of course, without pilot projects we cannot do, because we have many ideas, lots of imagination, but in reality life is more complex, and we need to have some projects that prove to be true to life. And in Yekaterinburg, the whole district, which is called Akademichesky, which is a prototype of smart city, and we use lots of technical solutions, and these solutions must be worked out, piloted, and should be the basis of new standards, and should be multiplied, cascaded to different other regions. Technical law is old-fashioned, and modern decisions that are made in abroad, they are not comply with our standards, and it's an obstacle to some budget funding and planning. In this respect, we've got a titanic work that in improving technical regulations and to start modern technologies in Russia. There are lots of examples when we cannot bring German technology to Russia, because we first have to apply lots of efforts to rewriting building construction laws. And when we talk about law we have talked a lot about, for example, street lighting. It is not the question of energy service. It's a complex project, and it is not only lighting. It's also Wi-Fi provision. It's a comfortable environment, and if we have pay attention to constitutional legal issues, and they are not facilitate these problems. And the topic, the contract of life cycle, is not in the regulations at all. Sometimes it's better to spend more money on pipes and to use more expensive equipment, but unfortunately we cannot do that, because contracts do not allow us that to do. But this is more effective. That's why our transition situation from the price limiting to life cycle projects is a priority for us, and will change our approach to planning and design of construction and the further maintenance of buildings. And of course, the question of financing. If we look at all innovation projects, which are complex in themselves, of course, always it is more difficult to do something new. But the evident question is that these new projects that require lots of expenses, they also have to presuppose the government support, and how they will be credited by banks, and how these decisions will comply with our housing regulations, because we can think of right things, but when there is no financial implementation measures, everything may remain on the paper. And that's why at the very beginning of the projects, we have to think them over in advance, who pays and where to get money, and how this tool works. It's an inevitable integral part of the task. From the point of view of different directions, it is most efforts will be focused on issues connected with management and registering resource consumption, transportation, and consumer, and this topic also of a smart regulation, smart management. It is evident that we don't have to register and to collect information. These data should be used for management. And it is important to collect, not only to collect data, but also to estimate the regulation impact and influence, to choose the best way of transporting and regulate loading systems. The next approach field is which is more interesting for me, but maybe which does not comply with the smart city, is electronic regulation, electronic management. For example, that if we use a robot in management system that calculates all the figures and numbers, that I'm sure that banking system will be better, and the loans will be cheaper, and the robot is more predictable than banks. I see that Sverdlovsk regulators are here, and I hope that they are not offended and will support me. And I think that the transition from these non-formal practices to digital technologies and digitalization of the whole process and providing information, ending with making regulatory decisions, is a big part of this project, and will help us to find out inefficiency features in provision of housing and public utilities. Of course, housing and public utilities, there are lots of new technologies and new services that should be supported and developed, and I would like to focus on the issues connected with electronic voting in blocks of flats. And this topic is being discussed because there are lots of falsified documents. This problem is solved technologically. We can think of different laws and regulations and controlling bodies which do not work efficiently. But if this task is solved technologically, when a person may vote from his mobile phone, and this vote cannot be falsified, it will create a different environment for discussion and decision making. And these services should be widely spread in the whole housing and public utilities. Startup of innovations of new productions. I have talked to many colleagues of mine that work abroad. In many cases, these are our former citizens and who work abroad, and they say that we can do that, implement that in Russia if there was a demand. Dear colleagues, we live in Russia, which is a huge country, and we have a program of development of housing and public utilities, and there is a demand for this kind of services, and localization of production and equipment provision is an industrial task, is a part of a huge goal of modernization of housing and public utilities and introduction of new technologies. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, you're welcome.
Thank you very much for such a wide intervention. And what is your role in the realization of the project that you have highlighted here? First of all, we are working with the regulations and laws, and a lot of barriers existing from the point of view of the realization of the projects. We are demolishing them in terms of the federal laws, and It is also concerning the waste, the heat, the water supplies, and so on. And we are also realizing a lot of practical projects and concessions. So the experience that we are gaining while realizing this project, this practical project, we are scaling it into the regulations and laws. So here we are, so to say, an industrial group of people which is preparing the proposals for the improvement of the regulations, and of course the technical issues and concessions and so on. Thank you very much. I see. In our big country is a very big problem of a very big difference of in the regions in terms of the social and property differences. And of course, the monocity, it's not always the depression, but it's always very high risks because the city depends on just one enterprise. But if this enterprise is successful, with the socially responsible approach, we can build the smart housing and public utilities and a comfortable atmosphere for the existing of the citizens. And the Russian copper company, the RMK company, has some receipts how to make the citizens of small cities happy. And Anna Shabanova will share this experience. Thank you very much for inviting us here today. Can I have the switch, please? So the Russian copper company is the vertically integrated holding. We are present in the 4 regions of Russia, in the region of Sverdlovsk, Chelyabinsk, Orenburg, and Novgorod, and also in the Republic of Kazakhstan. And the main challenge for this company is that the mining industry and the metallurgy is being held on the remote territories and in the mono cities, so-called. And it's only we who can help the territories on which we are operating. And the reason for that it's not always the lack of budgets, because the local administrations are responsible for the spending of this budget money. But today we just don't have the procedure of the partnership between the state and the private companies. And it is not guaranteed that an investor will get his projects implemented after that. And in the city of Karabakh, for example, we have spent 120 million rubles for the roads in Karabakh. And of course, we have, for now, no guarantees that this money will be spent on the investment into the road network of the city. It's just based on the enthusiasm of the local administration. We have no written documents supporting these investments. And the administration just telling us that they will do all that is possible in order to implement this project. But today we would like to speak about the most important resource, the human life, and to discuss the problem of the territory based on the human problems. So the electricity and energy and heat and air, they are renewable resources, but the time it is non-renewable resource. And we have to be very responsible about it. But today, if we take the example of Karabakh, for example, while forming the social sphere and providing the population with all the which is necessary, we think that the relocation of people should require the less time possible. It should be very comfortable for people to go to work, to do sports, to go shopping, and their children should live near the schools and kindergartens, which should be comfortable And also the cultural institutions should be near, and we should drop the complexity and get to the sustainability and to the meaningfulness. So we should not do our project very far, because not everybody has cars and not everybody has forces and time to visit the neighboring city, for example, to visit the entertainment parks and big shops. The citizens of big cities have this possibility to go to a big supermarket, to go to the cinema, to go to food court. So just to fulfill their needs in entertainment and cultural events and in shopping. And they don't even notice that. So our aim is to move the goods of the big cities to the small cities. So now we have the possibility to educate ourselves, we have the possibility to get some information from any source. And here it is the huge step forward. It's a huge progress here. And it is available almost for everybody. But unfortunately, the culture of the ordinary life is very different between the big cities and the small cities. And also, we would like the citizens of the small cities where our company is present have the same possibilities that the citizens of big cities. So for very long years, we bring the stars of the federal level or of international level. For example, Mike Tyson has visited our territories not very long ago. Also, we bring different stars, and it's a great amount of people. Philippe Kirkorov, for example. So, different famous people. And also the stars of science, of technologies, and we bring them to our schools, to our cultural centers. And our workers, our employees, and their families came, and they feel that they're part of something big. They are part of very important processes in the region and in the world, and they understand that they are aware of the last trends. And so, thus, we are changing their consciousness. And so we create a new person, new human, who is responsible for his territory. And we are seeing this while building a big road. And we see that the good territories, the little roads, the little gardens are emerging around them. And it is done by people and by local enterprises. So I begin to the main aim of our presentation. We would like to point your opinion to the fact that it is necessary for all infrastructure to be comfortable and to be located near the housing. So here in Karabakh, we have formed a historically important place for Karabakh. It's the Alley of Veterans. Years ago, they held the meeting of the veterans, the celebration of the New Year's. It is a very important place for the schools. They held some events there, and the biggest school of Karabakh is near this place. Also, they have the medical resort near this place for 64 patients. And we have built their sport complex. It's a closed arena for 2,000 square meters, which allows people to do any sports. This is volleyball, basketball, fighting. And they have the gyms, also different kinds. And so a lot of platforms for different sports. And we were very glad when we saw the groups for the elder people. When we created these groups for elder people, we thought we will have just one or two of them, but now we have four of them. So our elder people are very, very eager to do sport. And we have one woman who restored her health just during 2 months after a stroke. So it is very important. And the elder people became very active and very vivid after several months of this occupation. And now we are building a trade center, an entertainment center, who includes different locations for the weekends for family. For example, the cinema theater, the trade zone, a big supermarket of alimentation and different customary goods, the food court, pharmacies, banks, the state center for state services. And earlier, the Karabakh citizens, after the salary, as a rule, they were meeting in the big supermarkets and big centers of neighboring cities. For example, they were going to Kishtim, Mias, and Chelyabinsk just in order to pass their weekends with their families. And today, we hope that our citizens will not go away, and perhaps the citizens of the neighboring cities will come to this town, and we will not spend our time to move to another town. We can spend this time just to sleep properly, to work properly, and to communicate with our relatives and with loved ones. Thank you very much for your intervention. I am ready to guarantee by any documents if your company will create the roads in our republic, we will build all those roads. Yeah, the main problem here is that we have to have the copper mines. So if you have copper in your republic, we are ready to consider this possibility. Yeah, I knew that this question will be asked, and I was ready to ask the same question. But I would like to understand your motives here. Isn't it too expensive? Do you have the stakeholders and they want to earn money? Perhaps you're forced to do it by the federal government or by local governments. Sorry, I will add something else. Or perhaps just the social responsibility and your philanthropy, or just people working in the Russian copper company are so responsible in a social way. Or perhaps it's a commercial project, because if you are building a trade center in a small city, perhaps you will manage it and you earn some money. So please show us some details about your motives of this work, just in order to scale this experience to other regions. Yeah, about the trade center. For the first years, it is non-commercial for sure, because we have a lot of methods by which we can calculate the trade center for different categories of cities. Our trade center is for 100 and more thousand of people, and in Karabakh we have only 11,000 of people, and we are not hoping for the payment from the changers. And we believe that people will come from another cities. It will be an oasis of culture and culture of the everyday life. But we think that we will not get any real profit from the trade center. But it is rather important because it covers the needs of the population. And I also showed the sport complex. It is fully owned by the Russian copper company, and the salary of all the coaches and all the payments is on us, and it is used for free by the population of the city of Karabakh. So why we are doing it? You said that the stakeholders want to earn money. Perhaps it's not always like that, and it is more often that we see this on federalist platforms. Perhaps it is the task and the aim of the stakeholders. Today, the aim is to give these goods to the population, and the main goal and the main value of the Russian company is the population, this human capital. Today, we are trying to work with the best technologies and with best methods, with best equipment, but it is useless without people. We can't have a person who doesn't comply with the reality of the progress and the new technology. Of course, it is based on people, and these programs, this progress have to proceed through the brain of the people and through the understanding that everybody is responsible for anything on his working place, in his family, in his life. So, for example, I am responsible for my life because I have to feed my family. I am the master of my life. And so that's why I will respect the security measures on the production. I will not throw waste in my courtyard. And we are trying to form this environment where everybody is a philanthropist on his place. And everybody is seeing how the big enterprises are existing. And these big enterprises are responsible for their territory. They are helping the little ones. And I, as a responsible person, I will help a child, I will help an elder person, I will get the waste away, perhaps instead of someone who can't or do that yet. So the responsibility is in our genes, actually. We were educated as such in the pre-revolutionary Russia and in the USSR. And this is very important to preserve that. And it is very important not to distract ourselves, to do that. And we are very glad when we have this, but it should be on the basis of the Russian soul and Russian culture. We should bring thus our children. When I return to the content that we received from the internet or just from other sources, we, in our programs for the young people, we try to show them Russian moral things. And they have this basis and they see where is the evil and the good. As I hope I answered your question. Thank you very much.
I would like to give the floor to Maxim Nevesenko, Deputy Director of Department for Demand Stimulation of the Fund of Educational Programs of Rosnano Group. I really like this name of directorate, Demand Stimulation. Demand stimulation is a universal economic mechanism that's actively employed in the current economy. So if we looked at developed countries, we will see that they use a broad range of measures for stimulating demand and supply. Moreover, we must admit that contemporary economy cannot function without it. And we, in Russia, don't look very well because we are too modest to use these tools too expensively. Maybe maybe our financial authorities, like the Ministry of Finance, are to blame, because indeed tools of demand stimulation that we could use must be more numerous. Besides, we need to take into account the need for a very precise adjustment of these technologies to use them. And I would like Maxim to share his experience with us. Demand stimulation, well, when our institution was only just created, it was 10 years ago, it was all very new, and the notion of a special division for demand stimulation was unthinkable, but then it became trendy. And now it's clear that such an institution is useful. We are talking about stimulating the demand for innovative products, and we must understand here that it's not just about innovative products. So Mr. Chubais said yesterday that the key difference between traditional and innovative products is that for innovative products, demand generates supply, and in innovative products, it's the other way around, and that's actually the basis of the set of tools we are using in our activities. My colleagues talked about the need for a comprehensive approach, and I would like to say a few words and give a few examples about how and what we are doing to stimulate the demand for innovative products implementation in various areas. And one of the high priority areas is certainly the utilities. Why utilities? So why convenient, comfortable urban environment? Lately, it has been said a lot, and our colleagues from the Russian copper company said that the most important thing for us is comfort and safety of citizens, that is ourselves. We live here month after month, day after day, and an environment should exist around us that's comfortable to inhabit, and from that there will be other benefits that are also useful. Based on that, we are saying that within our activities we have a set of certain technologies that are efficient, financially efficient and resource saving, yet at the same time we understand very well the reality that surrounds us, and the fund within its activities uses not only the technological component. We have several dimensions that help us solve this problem in a comprehensive manner, because the technology itself, technology of innovations, is great, but we need HR for that. If you don't have the people who A, can manufacture this technology, and B, most importantly, apply it efficiently, the technology itself will never play its role. It's not needed, and we will not save any resources. So proper arrangement of educational policy for training employees who know and how to use modern equipment is extremely important. And design it too. It's also a big problem because within our activities we often face this issue that designers are not willing to design new products, or even don't know how. Even though, and that's the next thing I wanted to talk about, these products are introduced in all reference books, and it has the required regulating and technical documentation, and we're helping with that as well. I would like to note that we're not talking about Rosnano products now. We are talking about products in general, because our fund is dealing with a broad range of products. We don't have the task of dealing with only Rosnano products. We are interested in any products that are available in the Russian Federation and that can be called innovative. As I have already said here, in terms of education, we always co-fund these activities, and Alexander knows that last year we summarized the results of a competition in Izhevsk and at the venue, and they are going to develop an educational program. I've mentioned a training program on applying new products. That's a very important thing. standardization of new products. We understand that the technical regulation tool, on the one hand, is limiting if there is no regulatory and technical documentation, and if the codes and rules are not amended accordingly, the product cannot enter the market. So we support these new technologies and we help these companies because we understand that they're not always able to cope with it themselves and sometimes don't even think about it. So we support them in terms of changing the effective regulatory documentation in the financial sense as well. And the third dimension is, let's say, there are many problems that must be solved, and everyone is talking about them. So we are always ready to work on that and solve the technological problem in a comprehensive manner. Based on the infrastructure that's created here, we are ready to describe a problem technologically and create a ready-made packaged product solving a certain task. That's also one of the options that we have. So I have now outlined briefly what our fund is doing, and let me now talk about the utilities. These activities that I have just listed, we tried to understand for a long time which was the better way to go. We decided to develop design documentation. We developed the design documentation and transferred it to a region that implemented it. And the key thing here has always been, and all my colleagues are saying that, is that someone must be the first. Someone has to start the motion, and afterwards, based on the implemented projects, where new technologies were used, afterwards it's much easier, believe me. For example, within our joint activities with the Ministry of Construction and Capital Repair Fund, we did several repairs using modern technologies. We are all making payments towards the capital repair of our houses, and they are limited with a certain amount of money, and the fund cannot spend more. The key thing was that applying modern technologies made it possible for capital repair funds to stay within these financial limits, which was very important. Yet the impact we received, for example, in the Kaluga region, we repaired a house 1335 series. And after the repair, the utility payments of its residents reduced by 30%. That's the kind of impact we got, and that's what's important for us. Other dimensions include road repair, the environment around us, and within the already launched projects at the federal level, as you know, a comfortable urban environment is a high priority project, and it has been prolonged until 2025 by the decree. If you visited the previous session yesterday, you could hear that from the Ministry of Construction. But in general, this project is certainly aimed at efficient application of contemporary technologies. And if we call things with their proper names, we are talking about creating an urban environment, not restoring it, because it doesn't even exist in some cities. And currently within this priority project, all municipal formations, absolutely all of them within Russia, will be provided with federal funds for urban environment creation. And it's important for us that the data bank that's being created now will include all this information that will then be put into practice. And we think that our task is providing a certain link between new technologies, the infrastructure for their implementation that I have mentioned earlier, and the region that's implementing it here, and further rollout. Of course, the main task is not just implementing a project for its own sake, but communicating this information. So the support of specialized institutions is very important for us here. I suppose that's all. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Let me just repeat once again, why is this important for us and why are we partnering in this? It's important for us to achieve this quantum leap in this direction. And avoid the usual situation that frequently happens when there is a task. The task is solved with the existing means. We report on successful completion, and that's it. But we see our task as offering what we have now at each stage, offering efficient solutions and technologies, offering project implementation, and we are ready to support that at all levels. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maxim. Since there are no more two presenters, we managed to save our resource, which is time, and we have some time, this resource left for questions from the audience. The microphones, please help us. My name is Konstantin Shur. I'm the head of the company Energa, and I'm involved in, we produce production with energy resource equipment, the news from the field. Our customers are municipal organizations and management companies, housing companies. All they do make orders in their personal interests, and not always they involve in specialists in energy saving. And I would like to point out that these solutions on resource saving, about smart districts and cities, and they are always, these decisions are made by the top management of the city, districts, and companies. And we are trying very hard. We have been trying very hard for the last 2 years to work as mediators between these people to create a common information environment on providing energy resource systems. It does not work properly, but that's why I've got a question. There was a question from Alexander Vyacheslamovich that we have to think globally, not just smart house, but think about long-term effects. For example, concession agreements, and we have to think of complex decisions that involve water provision, energy provision, and so on. And we need some influence, impact from government bodies and associations. Alexey Vyacheslamovich, I've got a question to you. Is it possible at your level, on your level, to act as a consolidating body to solve the conflicts and to help with concession problems? For example, if there is a house that implements energy-saving system of heat provision, and for other houses it may mean a negative influence. Thank you for the question. I would like to point out that we, on the one hand, love to talk about new projects and technologies, but if we look at that about law order number 201 about the equipment that calculates heat and water consumption, and we've got these problems, and we've got these problems in general, and I think that political power is very effective, might be very effective, and starting with the law on energy saving technologies. You are absolutely right that we need the power to implement these decisions from the point of view of translation of different innovations and projects and enhancing the area of their implementation. There is a colleague from Udmurtia about a very beautiful project on city lighting. It's great that this kind of project has worked properly in Udmurtia, but we have worked on street lighting in different regions, but this system is very simple. Some cities they've got different attitudes to that. They're not interested, absolutely not interested in supporting any initiatives in city lighting and so on. And when a new manager comes to a region and tries to realize to implement this kind of project, and he or she faces great resistance on behalf of the community because they are used to the situation which is stable there. It's kind of Italian strike. And of course, working out projects and some forceful implementation of this kind of projects in regions is working well. For example, the waste recycling, and some regions were implemented this kind of factories, and in some regions they were implemented as electronic models, which this sphere in housing, in utilities, was not transparent. It used to be not transparent, and now it is fully controlled and fully transparent. This is an example how the Federation can implement locally very important technological innovations. And it is very important that the project is well designed, well worked out, and is ready for implementation and cascading. And I would say about these projects, which especially about the projects of energy saving, and they should be financially viable and financially effective. And we understand who benefits from it, and it should be marketed and promoted properly before it is kind of experience is cascaded to other, multiplied in other regions. Yes, please, you're welcome with another question. I have come to listen to about the system of life. It's about smart city. It's about people. It's very close to what Anna was talking about, because she's a representative of business, not the government. And she was talking about energy-saving project that might bring money. And it means that energy is saved and money is saved. And but on the other hand, people at power-producing plants will not get salaries. We can still use coal and to provide people with money. I came to understand what kind of technological solutions may create new services for citizens that would make their city living more comfortable. Of course, for citizens, it doesn't matter what kind of energy-saving lamp is being used. But this is not IT decision. If there is less litter in the streets, it's good for the people. I don't know who I should address this question, but I'm interested in what kind of trends, big trends, that can be seen by citizens as beneficial. I will answer this question after the comfortable city environment. It's about It's about how to save energy and how to use it efficiently and how to integrate it into comfortable city environment. Of course, our colleagues talked about comfortable city environment, and not everywhere it is being implemented. I mentioned it several times in my presentation, and I said that changing bulbs is not energy savings technology. We are talking about one and the same situation. For example, in Izhevsk, we do what we do in Izhevsk is the direct visual and technological benefit for citizens, because changing lamps and outsourcing them is a direct responsibility for the citizens, is that all the streets will be lit and they will be changed. Of course, citizens don't care about energy saving or not energy saving lamps, but the problem is that from 8 to 12% of lamps are not working at all. That's the problem. When, of course, not all streets are lit. And internal resources of city lighting is a budget, and that's I'm the consumer of this service. And the second thing is this clear sky. Of course, I think that you're walking the city streets, and some street lights stands. There are up to 14 cables that are attached to them. And changing these cables for safe cables is our task. And lighting is an issue. Some areas in our city have lots of cables, and it is not safe for the citizens. We change the public space in our city, and we use all new technologies that can be facilitate life of our citizens. For example, there was no park, and then it appeared. We have got a huge project on the 19th of July. We will reconstruct the central square of the city and show the citizens what will be there, what new will be there on the square. And part of it will be done in this year and the next year. And from simple things to complex things like Wi-Fi, charge, an opportunity to charge smart telephones, playing grounds for children of different ages that would not for mothers and babies up to, or children up to 7, but for all ages. It will be comfortable for all of them. And I can assure you that when we talk about smart city, the main idea is behind that is that smart people There are lots of people in local governments who would like to live in comfortable environment, who look at these situations globally. You are from Moscow, so of course you've got all the possible and impossible resource, energy, technologies, and comfortable city environment. We are the main driving force of the changes. May I add a little bit about the city projects, city environment projects? They are more visible for citizens rather than housing utilities, and that's the reason why the project of Minstroy was very successful. And in this respect, the repaired bank of the river that is an example of what can be done within the city, a comfortable environment where Wi-Fi is installed, and video surveillance cameras. The electrical cables, they are just nerve synapses of the city, and if they provide us with Wi-Fi, it's a different story. Muscovites cannot understand that because they've got Wi-Fi everywhere. There are a lot of projects starting with benches and Wi-Fi and smartphone chargers. Housing utilities is more conservative because they are about electricity, heating, water, and there will maybe no new services. But for example, in Copenhagen, the most profitable business is the cooling system. They have a centralized cooling system pipes, and they spend a lot of energy with these kind of systems, and probably will have them in Russia as well. In housing utilities system, we expect new technologies and new approaches, but visual changes will be mainly in city environment, and waste recycling is a part of housing utilities and public utilities.
Let me then add a few words, since you were listing these things. The projects that are not yet implemented in Russia, on our side, we are also admiring what's happening in Zurich. 4 plants in Zurich are completely providing the city with electricity, and they are burning trash. Yet Zurich has a great air and a wonderful lake. Of course, you need to study this experience and run pilot projects in Russian regions to see how it would work in Russia. Of course, our urban environment will make a huge stride forward if we learn to do it the same way, because this experience exists. Yes, thank you. We still have time for one more question. Excuse me, I just wanted to add something from this futuristic perspective. 4 people are answering one question. I could also answer it, but I won't. Just about the trash, for everyone to know. There is a project for trash recycling trash bin in the comfortable urban environment. I think the key thing here is that everyone or anyone who is here now can launch this process. It's quite available. You can vote for what you want to change. So vote for installing such trash bins in your district. So when there is no problem with trash, you'll live as if you were in Zurich. I'm sorry, we only have time for one question left, although there are several people who are willing. My name is Alexander. I'm a regional journalist, and I wanted to ask our speakers the following question. We are now talking about implementing new technologies from the federal to the regional level, but has it ever happened when, on the contrary, a small managing company, a utilities company, or a small business was interested in saving on something, implementing a certain technology, and it was looking for a solution? And they were looking for funding. Are there ways of funding such small companies, utility companies, that would like to save on technologies? Is there an algorithm allowing small companies to get federal funding? I will try to answer that. There are two points here. Firstly, we are not funding the implementation of technologies, and no one does ever. But financial and non-financial support is provided at various levels: the regional level, the federal level. It's quite large scale, because any small company that is active can always overcome the administrative barriers that exist, and all the conditions are created for that. There are many examples of that, and speaking about our company, I can say that we are working with small companies, and as you understand, all companies are located in some regions. So if we are saying that this is a small company from Udmurtia, and it can get to Yekaterinburg within this comfortable urban environment project, that's not a financial assistance. But if it's profitable for the company, and the company thinks it's right, and it's their business model, and they're developing like that, then we are assisting them. Any region provides support to its companies in various ways. Can I add something? So unfortunately, so far, we don't have a queue of companies waiting to implement, utility companies waiting to implement technologies. I'm sure that if we had a request from a company, we could find a way or even develop some measures to help them. But it's the issue of market maturity and entrepreneurship maturity, and regional authorities shouldn't be nurturing the market. Large business understands that it needs to be done, and we have 3 large industrial corporations that were implementing such technologies, and they are going to continue implementing them, and we help them. Any upgrading of industrial manufacturing receives federal funding, and the regional authorities assist it to get this funding, plus regional support measures. We are ready. If a utility company addresses us with such a request, another vice prime minister is dealing with the utilities, and I will ask him, do our regions have any experience of developing such support measures? If they do, we will be happy to arrange a meeting with our utility companies and offer them this opportunity. But from them, as entrepreneurs, we have unfortunately received no such requests. Thank you. To conclude our session, I would like to thank our dear speakers and all of you, our grateful listeners. Thank you.